What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm excited to have you here. I'm going to talk with Mike Tonor of Midnight Highway. I got passed a little bit of information about the book, and it sounds like it has a lot of influences, but it also sounds like a lot of elements and influences that are really fun and interesting. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about this book and find out a little bit more about how the mind works behind the book itself. So, Mr. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, great. Well, thanks for having me again. My name's Mike Tonor. I've been writing comics for about 6 years now, and this is not my first comic, obviously. I've worked on a couple other series along the way, some other books that I've done. Black Jackets. I had a series called The Dragonfly. I'm producing quite a few series right now. I've got 5 books that I'm running right now, actually. So this is the priority. Midnight Highway is the priority for sure. That's the #1 book.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really cool. So I guess, what are some of your other books about before we get to Midnight Highway?
Okay.
Kind of see what some of those other influences are you like to tug at.
Yeah, sure. So, the Black Jacket series is really the one that initially took off with readers. Just a group of teenage monster hunters who are basically replacing their parents in the role. Their parents went missing, so they're kind of thrown into the role prematurely. So not only are they trying to, settle into, the position of being professional monster hunters, they're also trying to figure out what happened to their parents. So there's a lot of teenage angst, a lot of feuding. There's a huge family dynamic between them. That's really the emphasis of the series. It just so happens that they're monster hunters is really the way that plays out.
Cool.
The drag
sounds like a coming of age, generational passing of the torch kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really it. And it gets compared to a lot of other series because I know there's a lot of popular series out there that have those elements, like Deadly Class, Umbrella Academy, The Runaways. Those are some comparisons that have been made to the book series. And that's definitely the target audience there with that. It's a black and white book, but you wouldn't be able to really tell because of the way it's so texturized. It doesn't really feel like, just pencil work and ink work, there's a lot of grayscale and a lot of shading in it. And I'm really proud of the artist on that book. His name's Francesco Tomaselli. He's a good friend. He's basically a co-creator on that book because he's contributed so much to the look and feel of the series. So that's Black Jackets. Awesome. The Dragonfly is a series that's concluded, but it was a mini series, but it's about an intelligence agency that employed extraterrestrials. And they were all basically equipped to stop alien technology from being passed around the world. There's a lot of arms dealers out there that are selling alien weapons and things of that nature. So they're kind of a group of agents that would intersect and try to stop the cell or stop people from using the weapons. A lot of espionage, a lot of action. Main character, it's kind of revealed late into the series, but there's more to the main character than just a special agent. That one was definitely influenced by a lot of conspiracy theories. It tried to tie in a lot of real UFO conspiracy theories, a lot of governmental conspiracies and all that stuff. It tried to tie into that as well. So that was the first series I ever worked on. So there was a lot I didn't know what I was doing at that point in time. And there's a lot of learning that came from that too.
Yeah.
So, and
that's a cool concept though. Kind of makes me think of Men in Black meets Lord of War.
Yeah, there definitely is. That's 2 really good comparisons there. And I think early on, that one was, having a vision at the very beginning when you start a series is very important, and sticking to a plan, because I think with that one, I had a specific plan in mind. And then as I started to see how readers were responding and what they liked most about the series, I started to modify it. And I think, learning from that is just understanding really what the appeal of the series is going to be before you really start working on it and putting it to page. And that was that's why I learned from that series. So really proud of the series. Those are the two main ones. I've got a couple others that are happening right now. Dead End Moon is one. That's a supernatural Western about a girl that has a cursed eye. It's basically a possessed eye, and it's a spiritual energy that's moving through the body. It's slowly consuming her and turning her. So she only has so much time to settle some debts and to enact revenge on a specific individual before this curse will take her over. And those are the series that I have right now.
That sounds really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, it
Really
seems
proud
like not that you're like riding a wave necessarily, but it does seem like Western stuff is kind of starting to come around in comics. You know, you had Undone by Blood just wrapped up their second series, and that's had a lot of like Western influence to it. And there's something else I read recently. Midnight Special.
Midnight Special. I haven't heard of that.
Something or Midnight. Man, it's Midnight something. It's like vampire Western kind of stories.
That sounds cool. I haven't heard of it, but it sounds awesome already. Well, the Dead End Moon does have vampires and werewolves and all those things in it for sure. But we didn't want to lean too heavy into that because obviously those can be tired tropes if you don't handle it in a unique way. We really dedicated the supernatural space of that book to new creatures and you know, trying to bring in mythological creatures, things of that nature too. So there's a Hydra in it, and there's these giant women that live in lakes that you have to summon on the right time of night, and they come up out of the water and they're like, you know, 10 stories high. It's just crazy visuals, you know, in that series.
Yeah, that sounds really cool though. Sounds sort of like an American mythology sort of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea, you know. It was and again, one of the best things about working on all these books is just having such contributive art teams that co-create this with you. So it's not just me coming to them with a script and say, hey, just follow this plan. I've done video calls with the art teams, with the creative teams. I have co-writers on a couple of those projects, and we workshop it. You know, it's definitely a writer's room before we start working on the books. That way we can get as many ideas in and work with the best plan. Yeah,
that's really cool. So I guess where are these books published at? Or are you purely an independent publisher?
Yeah, self-published. Dead End Moon's in production right now. It's not done. It wrapped up its Kickstarter in January. The artist that worked on that book is highly sought after. So she stays very busy, and she had other commitments that she had to finish. So she's got to wrap those up first before she can conclude the work on Dead End Moon. But everything's published here in the room that you see me in right now. Like, I get everything printed, everything gets printed elsewhere, gets shipped in here, and this is where I do the packing and order placing and shipping and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
So
it looks like a very interesting room. I see you have a very nice microphone there, and then you got like some arcades behind you. So I guess tell me a little bit about yourself too. What are your hobbies beyond just making awesome comics?
I play games. I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies, which will segue into Midnight Highway pretty nicely. And play music. I've been playing guitar for since I was 13. So that's, oh man, it's 24 years ago. So I play in a band. I sing in the band. I play guitar in the band. We've been around for a couple years. We just play locally. You know, it's not really anything serious as of yet. But yeah, I mean, I live with my fiance. I've got a dog named Jack, a cat named Avy, and that's probably the most enjoyable spectacle in my life is watching those two animals feud. It's like everybody's like talks about Godzilla versus Kong a lot. You know, these two, man. It's you get to see these cage matches like every day. You know, they're just, you know, we have to pin the dog up, and the cat knows that she knows that the dog can't escape the pen, so that cat gets in there with him when she wants to scrap, and then she bolts. So yeah, those are the things that I get into a lot of the time. Like I said, horror movies is a huge thing. Every day I'm at this desk, writing, goofing off, messing around with an Adobe Illustrator a lot. I do a lot through that, and then I'm watching stuff on Shudder.
Very nice. I haven't signed up for Shudder yet, but it's one of those like niche products that I hear about a lot, and it sounds like they're doing like really quality work within their like domain. I think it's really interesting in the world of so many services that they can kind of stand out in their own little corner.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it. You don't really realize how vast the horror genre is until you start to like browse their catalog, and then it's just because most horror thrives on lower budgets, which means that more people do horror because it's there's that grassroots kind of raw feel to horror films that definitely attracts a lot of young filmmakers. So they, their first film is usually a horror film or something that's in that or touches the edges of horror. And you see that a lot through Shudder. But, there's a couple of documentaries that you've got to watch that are on Shudder. It's In Search of Darkness. They're like 5 hours long, but it's all about 80s horror, which was literally the greatest decade in horror. Absolutely. Yeah. And it will make you a fan after you watch those, guarantee it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Horror seems to be like all the rage these days, especially in comics. So it seems like they've kind of found a new life in cinema as well, but definitely horror seems to be a big thing in comics right now.
Yes, I noticed that too. Some of my favorite writers write horror, when they're not doing work for the big two, they venture off and do things, their way, and they're picking, titles that are supernatural and more on the horror spectrum. So it's definitely a popular thing.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because like I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately for some reason, but I think like one thing that horror offers that a lot of other stuff doesn't is the fact that like a lot of what we're scared of is the unknown. And so the less that you explain about your world and what's going on, the better it makes the experience for the reader. But that in turn gives you the freedom of like not having to worry about continuity and explaining all these different things. And, like as a writer, it really lets you dig down into the characters and the personalities that are in this area, and you don't have to worry about like, well, what about Jim Bob that went to school down the street 3 years ago and stuff like that, like none of that matters. It's like inside this house or inside this plane of existence, and I think it gives writers a certain kind of freedom because it takes away a lot of what constrains you, especially at the big two, where it's like you have to honor all this continuity and everything. And then it's like, okay, and I can go over here and just do this thing, and I don't have to worry about any kind of continuity because everybody's dead anyway,
Right, right. And I agree with you on that. And that's actually, why Midnight Highway works so well. At least, I wish Alex could be here to kind of share with you just like how you kind of hit the nail on the head about the liberties we have with, world building. When you don't really try to create a lot of rules and just let your mind wander, and horror lets you do that. Like you said, it's about exploring the unknown. And another part of that is being able to have this huge canvas that you can just paint whatever you want on it. And as long as it's something that is motivating you or causing those kinds of reactions that horror causes, then, it's going to satisfy someone, and the thing about horror is that, although it can be kind of seen as a very narrow genre, it's actually really not. There's a lot of innovation that still happens with it. There's still a lot of creativity and new and fresh ideas that get introduced every year. And a lot of that kind of taps into film. You can see that. But same thing goes for a lot of comics and a lot of other mediums as well. There's still a lot of unexplored territory with horror. And like you said, some of the greatest things exist in the unknown, right? And sometimes you have to let the mind of the reader fill in the gaps and allow for some room there so that they can kind of, come up with their own theories on what's happening.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I uh, I assume you're a fan, but we'll find out very quickly here. Have you been reading Department of Truth?
I just got the first volume. I haven't read it yet,
Oh,
but I
okay.
haven't. It's like right behind me in the bookcase.
Yeah, it's really cool. The most recent issue was number 10. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets into, I mean, the basic premise of the whole story is basically like the more collective conscience believes in something, the more it becomes reality. So if enough people believe the world is flat, then the world actually will become flat. And this Department of Truth basically is out there monitoring conspiracy theories to make sure that some of these ones that would become too dangerous don't become a reality. And so, like in this most recent issue, one of the characters, like he gets this letter from basically like from his dad, and that takes up a large portion of the story, but it's written like it'll take up a whole page, and it looks like a letter, and you have to read all the writing and scribbling and stuff. It all looks like handwriting, but it's just like it reminds me of what you're talking about, in that like there's still innovation happening. Like somehow Tynan is able to take reading a letter inside of a comic book to a level where like it paces everything perfectly, and it draws you into that world, and like in this one-off issue really just like sucks you into that world, creeps you out, shows you how messed up things really are, and then brings you back out of it. And it's really well done.
I need to read it. I need to get started. Yeah. Well, like the premise was shared with me from a local comic book shop. The owner was talking to me about it, and he kind of, he pitched it to me basically, and I was like, well, okay, this sounds like something I'd like. Bought it, and then I bought a lot of other stuff, and obviously that wasn't at the top of the stack, so that's why it's not opened right now. But yeah, I need to read it because a lot of artists that I work with too have mentioned how much they're loving it. So it's definitely yeah, like everyone's pretty unanimous on this one being a really quality story. I think I got optioned too. I think it got optioned for a television series. I can't remember who or what.
Yeah, I don't know if we know any details really, but it got optioned, and I could see somebody like Fox, or I guess now it would be more like Hulu, maybe even Netflix picking it up as kind of like an X-Files sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was
maybe
thinking.
A little darker than that, but yeah, I mean, it's about like this department, just like the X-Files or Men in Black even, like this secret government agency that handles these things, and they're inspecting these things that are kind of beyond our own natural realm, So I don't think the show is going to be nearly as much like the book. But yeah, I could see like kind of an X-Files thing where they kind of focus on like 2 field agents or something, and there's like a department and everything. I think it would be a really cool show, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. The beauty in the artwork is it's so abstract, and that plays into like the horror vibes and the unknown. Like they're showing you this character, but like it's so abstract, you can kind of draw your own conclusions on how creepy that actually is in your own mind, So it's a really good play on like quality artwork, but also in creative artwork, but also like letting your mind kind of create more than is necessarily on the page.
Yeah, I think some great examples of that. I'm a huge Sandman fan, and Dave McKean's covers. A lot of the art that Dave McKean would do for Sandman was definitely open to interpretation. You're trying to figure out. He would choose random objects a lot of times in his illustrations that would be featured, and you're trying to figure out like, why is that relevant? Sometimes it's not, or you start to piece it together in a way that makes sense to you, which is really cool. So I love that abstract art and how that finds its way into comics, as opposed to just your traditional.
Yeah, that's what I love about the medium. Like it's always evolving, and people are finding new, innovative ways to kind of tap into it, and so it's really cool. That's awesome stuff. And then Tynan also started Nice House on the Lake recently. That's been a really good read if you haven't picked that one up.
Read that either.
No, it's sort of The Nice House on the Lake. Number 2 just came out on Wednesday.
Oh, okay, so it's pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of got like a sort of it's definitely a horror, but it's kind of like reality TV I don't know, like almost reality TV mixed with like you have to stay a night in a haunted mansion that your relative left you or whatever, you know. It's sort of
Yeah.
that. Like this guy has basically been meeting people his whole life that he's maintained connections with, and so he invites all of them to this house for a week. And once they get there, things start to get kind of strange, and then there's a lot of fallout from there. Like, and it's really good. Like again, Tynan has figured out how to like perfectly pace a book. Like it's so smooth the way you move through the whole thing. He gives you like little character profiles and stuff.
Right.
And then in the second issue, they show you like kind of some like blueprints of the house, and they give you like CCTV footage, so you're kind of seeing these images in silence, you know. And then he'll show you the transcript, so you read that, and that kind of breaks up like the actual action and imagery and stuff. And so it just like it flows so well. Like you're looking at pictures of characters interacting, and then you go into like this transcript, you know, and then you come out of that and they start exploring the house, and you get like these little blueprints like popping up that kind of pull your attention, you know, and direct you through the page. It's really well done.
That is cool. Yeah, and like I'm just now, like I said, getting familiar with Tynan, and noticed that he did Something is Killing the Children, and I picked up a couple volumes of that because I was told that I'd like that too. So I just need to read his stuff.
Yeah.
Like I have not caught up to him yet, and I'm kind of bummed. Apparently, I need to.
Yeah, once Something is Killing the Children really caught traction, he just exploded from there. So
right,
he's got a lot of stuff right now that people are really into. I just sold a bunch of Something is Killing the Children books, in fact. So it's a great series. It moves real fast though. Like the volumes are great because you just like move through them, you know. But if you like Monster Hunter stuff, that's definitely right up your alley.
I do. I love monsters. I hate monsters. So awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is all awesome. I love hearing your influences and stuff. I guess kind of give me the synopsis of Midnight Highway and what this book is and what it's about.
Okay. Very simply, it's about a teenager who stumbles onto a mysterious highway that's perpetually shrouded in night time. You know, like it's never daytime there. He tries to turn around. He's on the same path. There's no escaping the highway. The idea is he is kind of like Alice in Wonderland, is just moving through all these different circumstances that the highway presents to him, and it's almost always something, you know, very bizarre, supernatural, sometimes horrific, and he is just peeling back the layers as the story progresses issue to issue. And all he's trying to do is just get back home, or try to find out where he's at least, or understand, you know, is he dead? Is he, you know, in a different dimension? You know, he's just this kid trying to figure out what's happening to him. And it often moves at a pretty quick pace. So you're just whipping right along. It's a never-ending sprint, you know, to the exit for him. So he's constantly just trying to find his way home. And so that allows for a really great, you know, as I mentioned before, really great pacing, and then a lot of things that have influenced us as writers, we can just throw into this book and build it the way that we want to. And so that allows us to just, you know, throw in anything that we would have ever wanted to see in this kind of setting. And that's what we've been able to do with the series so far.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So he's just like going down this highway and like comes across whatever in the middle of the road?
Yes. So without giving too much away about issue 1, because that's the only one that's out right now. We're running a Kickstarter for issue 2 on the 14th. You know, which, you know, right now, you know, today, you know, we've got a few days before that launches. Everything that's in the book is definitely pulled from something that we, you know, enjoyed, and is always a reference to something else, almost always. He just got home from a date with his girlfriend that he loves very much. You know, it's kind of, you know, teenagers in love's kind of one of those, we're gonna live forever and we're always going to be together kind of vibes. Obviously set in the 80s, so that's why we try to put a lot of really bright neon colors in there, a lot of vibrancy in the book. He is coming home from a date and stops and sees a deer in the middle of the road, and it's not moving. He's honking at it. He gets out and approaches it, and it's in that moment that everything switches. He's not in the real world anymore. It immediately transitions to something really surreal and horrifying. For issue 1, The Thing was a really big influence. So John Carpenter's The Thing. We definitely played up the body horror aspect on that issue, and we got a really great monster out of it. The artist Alexander Malashev did a fantastic job with the design of it, really just the look and feel of the book, and then our colors really knocked it out of the park in terms of a way of coloring something in the nighttime that still looks really colorful and vibrant. Like it's kind of crazy how well he pulled it off, to where there's not a single black sky in the book. It's but you still feel like it still feels like it's nighttime, and he's done a great job with that. And then the letterer had a really big challenge too, because the creature talks, and we didn't want to just have a creature that was raw or groar groar. Like he had to innovate and do some things a little unique to get the point across that this creature is something else, it's something different. And a lot of readers kind of responded to that really well, because what they were, part of it was to subvert expectations, right? We kind of know, hey, something's going to happen with this deer, but what happens after, it's not something that really quite anyone could, have predicted.
Yeah.
So, that's issue 1. And now issue 2 takes place in a haunted arcade. So every setting, like I said, is different. Every issue kind of feels like a monster of the week. And there's a new setting that the main character Alex is in, and we continue to build on subverting expectations with each of those. We set it up to make you think it's going to happen a certain way, and then it takes a left turn.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I think Anthony had sent me an email, and that was in the subject line was John Carpenter, and I think he even specifically mentioned The Thing. And that got my attention immediately, because I love that movie. I think it's great how it just plays with the tension and the dread, and really fills you with this suspense of what is to come. And so this sounds really cool, because I like this idea that he's just traveling down this road and dealing with whatever comes his way, and the idea that the next thing might be easier, but it also might be a lot harder, so
right.
That kind of fills you with that, I want to move forward because I know things could get better, but there's also always this sense of this might be as good as it gets,
Right. And the idea with the series is to change it up, so it's because it can't just be a constant chase this entire time, right? The first issue definitely has a lot of, it's a chase. It's frantic, it's terrifying, because it's just happening out of nowhere. It's very, it's got a visceral feeling to it because of that. But the idea is that, we said, hey, when we compared in the past, we say, hey, Alice in Wonderland meets Twilight Zone, those two things. And as we know with Twilight Zone, there are some pleasant stories that are in there that are supernatural and odd, but not always terrifying. Sometimes they're, sometimes it's a love story. Sometimes, it's actually something quite humorous. But no matter what, it's something that's happening that is very unusual. And we kind of wanted to treat the Midnight Highway as the same thing. Sometimes Alex might be dealing with something that isn't necessarily posing a direct threat to him, but there's a calamity or there's a situation, something that he has to solve to advance further on his path. And that's kind of how we left it kind of open to where we can explore a lot of different themes and still tie it back into his journey to where, he's trying to go.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. That sounds really cool.
Thanks.
Um, I pulled up some pages here, and like, I love this color work, man. Like you were saying, well, I guess one thing, it looks like there's a pretty dominant purple tone to everything. And I really like that. But yeah, like you were kind of describing, like the skies aren't black. They play on that like kind of like dark, deep purple colors and stuff, where it almost looks illuminated, but it also like presents itself as like that infinite backdrop, you know. So that's really cool.
And I know Anthony probably sent you the pages and the page. Like I'm pretty sure he didn't show you the last page of the first issue, which really shows you the Midnight Highway as what it is.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that.
That is such a fun conclusion to that first issue, because everything that's happening is very, you know, grounded to a certain extent in terms of the atmosphere, and the environment is still the road, but that last page of issue 1 shows you what the Midnight Highway is. And it's and when I remember seeing that page for the first time illustrated and being blown away. And then when we got the colors for it, it was just like, oh, like it was just one of the, it really was one of those moments where we got the page back from our colorist, and Alex, my co-creator and partner on this, we called each other and we're like, did you see that? That's amazing. This is everything that we were ever wanting in terms of what we wanted this to be and look like. So it was exciting to see. So I'll have to send you a PDF of issue 1 so you can really see what it leads to. But we're really excited about that. And now, because we've introduced that, now it definitely opens things up to where we can explore that more.
Awesome. And I mean, you mentioned Alex here. So is he co-writing it, or is he doing artwork, or I guess like, what is the creative team on this?
Okay. So there are 5 of us, right? Me and Alex Madej are the writers and creators, really. You know, we come up with the stories. We write the pages together. Kind of a unique process with that. I'll share here in a second. But Alexander Malashev, he is the artist on the book. He does the pencils and inks. Hedwin Zaldivar is the colorist. Hedwin does a lot of work for Zenoscope, so you've probably seen a lot of Zenoscope covers that he's colored, and interiors that he's colored as well. And then we have Dave Lentz, who is an asset and a friend, a good friend. He is our letterer. He's worked on several really high-profile indie books, at least in the community that I'm in. Some really high-profile books, and he works on almost all of my books now. That's the art team. We have a 3D version of the book, so issue 1 has a completely 3D rendered version by Mateo Fuentes. And that's definitely a unique experience as well, because it's black and it's just black and white pages, no lettering on those pages, and just throw on some blue and red lens, classic 3D glasses, and you just flip through that book and just have everything popping out at you. Is really quite a treat.
Wow.
That's the art team on. Yeah, it was awesome, man. He did a great job with it too. It wasn't hokey 3D. It was like really well done, and cool. He did it for issue 2 as well, and those pages really pop as well. That's the art team. As far as like how Alex and I have been writing, though, we pick scenes. Hey, do you want to write this scene, or do you want me to write this scene? I think you should write this scene because I know you have a better vibe for it, and that's how we did this. There's one really, really big scene in issue 2 that Alex was like, "Please let me write this. Please let me write this part." I was like, "Absolutely, go do it." And it's helped us kind of keep each other accountable, because we can bounce ideas off of each other, but we can also shoot down ideas that we just genuinely don't think work. And there's not been any conflict with that. We've been able to really, we've meshed really well. And I don't think that's always the case for a lot of them. You don't see a lot of co-writers on comics. It's usually one person that writes it, right? But this was a passion project of mine, and I knew Alex was the guy to partner with on this, because he and I share a lot of the same loves for 80s horror and science fiction. And it worked beautifully because of the fact that, he could come at things with a different angle. And then suddenly, we would change our trajectory just because of his ideas. I can tell you, issue 1 had so many different forms, completely different from the one that we finally settled on and we agreed was the best. It's kind of crazy to go back and look at old drafts and realize what we almost had in comparison to what we ended up with.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the only other writing duo I really know in comics, at least like, at a more indie level, is Bob and Kevin from Metal Shark Bro.
Yeah.
And they always
like
talk about great book. Yeah, they always talk about like, for them, their motto's basically always been like the best idea wins, So, their thought is pretty much anytime that you like pros and cons anything, like there's going to be a clear winner, And so that's always been kind of the thing for them, is like taking the ego out of it and like, what is the best idea here that we're presenting, and let's run with that and stuff, So, there is other people co-writing, but it sounds like it's, I don't want to say like a lot of work, but it definitely is something where you have to be able to kind of manage yourself just as much as, managing the work of writing and putting together a project.
That's beautifully put too, because you do have to, like you said, take the ego out of it. It can be difficult. And the other side of that too is also identifying truthfully which is really the better idea, because we're, sometimes we come up with countering ideas and we're going to bat for that idea, and we're really, but what's been good about this is that, I describe myself as humble, and I definitely describe Alex that way too. And we're also just really honest with each other, I've had some ideas where I've come up with, and he's like, dude, that's just, I don't know. I don't know if that's really what we should do. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me why. And usually after that, I get it, and I've had to do the same thing with him. I've had to be like, here's why I don't think it'll work. And that's tough to anyone else. I think that would be tough to have that conversation with, but with Alex, it's not, because I think there's a friendship layer there, and that really involves a lot of mutual respect. So that allows us to really be just completely transparent and honest with each other. And that helps us trim the fat very quickly and get to the point. And it's been nice. It's been really great. And what the most fun about this is, not only are we writers of the series and creators and all that stuff, we're really fans of this. Like, we're fans of Midnight Highway. We eventually want to see other people write stories for this. We want to see people take off with this. We want people to continue to build out, the lore of it and everything. We're excited to see what happens next. We don't know what's going to happen next. We didn't really make a plan for what's going to happen that far ahead. We want to keep things unpredictable even for ourselves, because we want to discover those ideas. And issue 2 was definitely like that. We just had a late night conversation like, hey, what would be cool? And then we keep bouncing back and forth things off of that. And eventually what's happened here is we Frankensteined a story with all these cool ideas. And now it's just like, all right, so we need to stitch this all together now and make this one functioning entity. And that's what we've done with issue 2. And as we're talking about issue 3 right now, because 2's basically done, same process is happening where we're literally just having conversations about, hey, this would be cool, that would be cool to see, and building it that way. And it's been fun. It's nice not having a plan, I guess is the best way to say that.
Yeah, I really like that idea, because like one of the things that I kind of hate about like the big 2 is that different people, different creative teams come along and they do different things with these characters, and so you get all these different versions of these characters. But something that I think is really cool about the big 2 is that you have all these different people and creative teams come in and like do their own versions of these characters, like it's a double-edged sword, there's good and bad to both sides of that. And you don't see it nearly as much in like indie comics. And Like we're kind of starting to get that now. Chip Zdarsky just wrote an issue of Crossover, so like you're kind of starting to get these other writers on different independent projects and stuff. And I think Jeff Lemire, his Black Hammer stuff's kind of done that. But I like the idea of people letting other creators come in and work in their worlds and stuff, and I think it really creates like a more interesting and diverse world because different people come with different perspectives, and so they can kind of take like your same premise or your same base concept, and kind of take it in these other directions. And that's kind of the beauty of creation, is the collaboration that goes into that, because somebody else's idea is naturally going to spawn something, a whole nother idea for you that you probably never thought of in your own world, so I think that's really cool that you are leaving the road open for these kinds of adventures down the road,
Oh, absolutely. And what we've done is every issue we've kind of committed to this, but there's a back page in issue 1 where we reached out to an indie writer to write a short story of an account on the Midnight Highway. And he, Ruben Ramirez, his name, is a good friend. He wrote a really, it was actually a sweet, kind of tender story that was very counterintuitive to the story in the comic, but that it exists in the same world is really kind of a great way to, right off the bat, show people that the highway can embody so many different things for so many different people. It can be a different experience for everyone. I think his was a really touching story to his mother who passed, and he had a very personal story in there, which was really great that he shared that with us. And so giving him the platform to write that short story, put that in the back of the book, was awesome. And we loved it. We thought it was a really great short story. And we have another one for issue 2 from another writer, and we're going to continue to do that. And it's been exciting to see what both of those guys came up with, because they were very different from anything that Alex and I would have thrown in that regard. And we love that about it. And another thing about that too, and I failed to mention this before, but we also have a radio show. We have 1 episode completed. It's on Spotify. It's about 22 minutes long. And in the book, there's this character in the book. It's the radio in the car. There's a radio station that plays, and the DJ or the host talks to Alex, the main character, makes announcements, has guests on that he interviews, plays music, and all those things. We have the radio show for Midnight Highway set up as if it is the radio show that's in the comic. And it's different segments, all written by the voice actor who is producing, editing, and performing all the segments on that radio show. And he's done a great job of building out the world in different ways too. And it's been exciting to see what he's done just with, I think there's 4 segments where he's interviewing different supernatural characters. And he's done a really great job of just fleshing out the world even more. And we're going to continue to make more radio show episodes as well.
Oh man, that's phenomenal. I love that. Aftershock, We Live, that book, the creators of that, they had music pieces composed for different parts of the book, and they have like QR codes you can scan in there, but they're basically posted on like a YouTube channel, and but it'll tell you like the title of the song and stuff, on the page, and then you like go listen to it, and it perfectly matches the tone. So I think there's like some really cool stuff going on with like mixed media in comics right now.
Yes, I love that. I think that's a great idea. I might steal it. We didn't think of that yet. We have AR, we have the main cover for issue 2 is an augmented reality cover. You download the Artivive app, and once you look at the cover through that app, it starts to animate. Takes to life. Yeah, so I love innovations like that. Obviously, that's something that we wanted to do for Midnight Highway, was to be innovative in those ways. I mean, we did the 3D book because that was more of a nostalgic thing. But the augmented reality is something we want to continue to build on as we go through further issues. We've talked about having entire animated sequences within the book. So like, hey, on page 9 through 13, download the Artivive app and you can look at these pages and watch them come to life. You know, we've been doing different little things like that, kind of teasing newer ideas and ways to kind of further engage an audience. But I love the idea of the music accompaniments with the QR code. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Have you ever seen, there's a movie called Vast of Night. Have you seen that one? No? You should definitely write it down. That's, I think, the way you were describing, like, the radio and the, and all of that, like, sounds a lot like this, because it's like a movie, it's like 90 minutes. I watched it on Amazon Prime. It's like a 90-minute movie, and it's kind of a horror movie in the sense that, like, it takes place in the 1950s, and, you know, like this girl, like she's a telephone operator, you know, so she would like have to work the actual switchboards and stuff. And then there's this other guy, he runs like a radio program at night, but it's set in like the 1950s. And so it's got like that primitive technology thing, and they start to hear this weird noise in all the lines. And then like people start calling and they're like, if you talk about that, like they're going to come and get you and stuff. Like it's a really cool movie. And it has kind of a similar vibe to how you describe your book here, because it's like in this small town, and it's like the 1950s, you know, so they roll up the sidewalk, you know, once the sun goes down. So you like literally have these two people that do like the only jobs that happen at night. So they're like going around this small town trying to figure it out. And there's like kind of a highway that goes through the town, and every time they're going from, you know, one part of town to another or something, they use these shots where it's like basically the camera's like rolling right above the ground, and it gives you like this weird sense of just like there's something more out here, you know, and this like sense of isolation. It's real quiet, you know, it's like nighttime in a small town. Like it seems like it might be in the middle of the desert or something, you know, so it just like seems like open and empty and stuff, and things just progressively get weirder as it goes. I think you would really like it.
I think I would. Thank you for letting me know about that.
Yeah,
I got to pull it up here.
Yeah, it's a trip. It's a really cool movie.
It's got a good tomato score. It's 92%.
Oh, nice.
So,
I didn't even realize it was that well reviewed. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, somebody had told me about it probably about a year ago now, and so I had looked it up and watched it. I was like, man, how does this movie not like get more recognition? It's well done. It's very well done.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that I didn't know about it. That's what I was looking at. Yeah, 2019 is when it came out, so it's pretty you know, fresh. You know, it's just cool. Yeah, I will definitely check that out.
Definitely, man. So yeah, I really like what you're talking about here. This sounds really cool. It sounds like it has kind of an anthology sort of setup around it, so that it can kind of continue and do all kinds of different things and evolve as it needs to be.
Yeah, we definitely wanted. That's the thing, when we first talked about it, when we started to realize the potential of it, we realized that there's infinite stories that can be told. You know, like, you know, you, for example, if I've reached out to you and said, hey, I'd like you to write a short story of, you know, a character of your choosing that experienced something on the Midnight Highway, I know you'll go in a wildly different direction from me. And that makes it exciting. So we kind of knew that eventually we might explore the idea of an anthology book, but we're obviously not there yet, because this is, you know, it's still a toddler, you know. We'll say that, you know, at least for me, you know, comics are like dog years because of how long it takes to make one. So, you know, this second issue, it feels like it's a teenager for us. And so we know there's still a lot of room to grow and make people care about this series, care about the Midnight Highway first. But we definitely entertain the idea of having an anthology book down the road where we have a lot of writers and creative teams that get involved.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I guess, is there anything else about Midnight Highway you want to touch on? And like, are there, I guess, like, what are your other books that we could pick up? Where can we find those as well?
Everything. I'm building an online store right now. building a site where everyone can make purchases and I can ship out books, because I'm starting to get requests. For a while there, I wasn't getting any requests. Like no one was like, "Hey, can I buy your book?" Yeah, so I was like, okay. It never occurred to me that eventually I would have to do it, because I just assumed no one's ever going to want to buy my books, right? So Kickstarter was the only way that I was getting books to anybody, was through Kickstarters. And then once I fulfilled that, then the remaining books would just sit here in my office. But we are going to build a site out. So for anyone that really does want to pick up these books, one great thing about the Kickstarter campaign that's going to hit in a few days, my personal publishing brand is called Bad Bug Media. Everyone can pledge on that Kickstarter for Midnight Highway 2, and they can pick and choose any of the other books that I've produced that are out, and they can add those on to their pledge and get those books that way for right now. And then once the site goes live, they can make purchases that way too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at your pre-launch link here. You already have 112 people that are following. So that sounds like you have a pretty strong start on this, and that there's people interested, you know?
Right. Yeah, our goal is to get to 200 by launch. So we've got quite a ways to go over the next 3 days. I'm pleased with what we have. We just set a goal.
I don't think, what's that, 85 people? That's not too bad.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot. I mean, I could go on for days about Midnight Highway. I would tell your listeners that it is definitely a passion project. Alex and I both have this just genuine affinity for all things 80s, you know, and really, as you know, over these last 3 to 4 years, maybe a little bit more, you know, a lot of 80s culture is starting to find its way back into the mainstream. And it's been a really exciting time for us because of that. But we put that love and that passion into the book, and we're really serious about this. We want to continue to tell stories about the Midnight Highway until we die, and our hearts and souls are definitely invested in this. So we think, and we really believe, that anyone that actually gets the first issue and reads it, they're sold. They'll be sold. We really believe that what we have here is really special because of the art team that's involved, and because of just our most sincere passion for this. And we really want to be entertainers with this book. That's the idea. We want to engage people. We want to entertain. We want people to be, you know, wowed by what we put in these books. So, you know, definitely want to encourage everyone to come by and take a look at the campaign once it goes live. Once you see the project video, once you see some of the interior art, once you see all the other art that's involved with the book, with the variant covers and prints that we have available, you'll see just how exciting the Midnight Highway really is, and what we're doing with this series. So definitely check it out.
Awesome. And I guess, what's the best way to find and follow and track your progress and what you're doing online?
So I'm very active on Facebook, and I'm relatively active on Instagram. Just picked up Twitter, so that's a whole other beast. I'm gonna have to figure that one out, because that feels like it's kind of difficult to get any kind of connection started there. So I probably wouldn't really encourage people to follow me on Twitter just yet, but you know, just look up Mike Tonor. My last name is so unique; you're not going to find many of me on Facebook. Mike Tonor on Facebook. Alex Maday, it's Maday. You follow us, you'll be kept up to speed, because we never shut up about Midnight Highway or anything else that we're working on. On Instagram, it's Mike Makes Comics, and I think Alex's handle is actually just Alex Maday. So you should be able to find him pretty easy on Instagram as well. That's the best places to find us right now.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I want people to know. So that's awesome. So they can tell you how cool all the pictures and images and progress updates you give out. Because what I've seen so far, like, I really like the color palette of this. I really like the art style, and like it kind of reminds me of like crime novels and like crime comics where they use a lot of like heavy blacks, contrasted against like these very bold colors. And I think that makes for good reaction shots and like emotion shots. It makes it really easy to tell what the character is going through.
Right. I agree with you. Like, I think there is definitely there's a technique to the color work. Absolutely. That the colors, and what's great about that is we hardly give him any direction. We picked him because we knew that he understood.
We trust his intuition.
Yeah, we really do. And every time we get a page back, we're like, that's not only did it meet our expectations, it exceeds it because he adds flair to it. But he definitely, we knew what we were getting when we picked up Hedwin as a colorist. We knew that he was going to contribute to the vision the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome. When is the Kickstarter running? You said it goes live on the 14th?
14th, which is a Wednesday. And we are going to, on Facebook, Tuesday night, we're going to do about a 30-minute show around 11:30, and we're going to launch at midnight on Tuesday, going into Wednesday. We're going to be, talking about the project, some inspirations that we had, do some giveaways, things of that nature, just to hype everyone up before we go live at midnight for the launch.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I'm going to have this out on Tuesday, the 13th, the day before.
Awesome.
And that way, maybe people can watch it the day before and hit that pre-launch, and then they'll get that awesome notification that reminds them that it went live on the 14th, the very next day, and then they can go over there and go ahead and back, and hopefully we can get you a strong start, because I know how important that is to these campaigns.
It really is. Those first few days are very crucial, and the last few days of the campaign are very crucial as well. So the bigger boost we have in the beginning, the easier it is for us to go through the next 21 to 30 days of the campaign, just kind of twiddling our thumbs, hoping to see some progress,
Yeah.
So any help would... It is. I've done quite a few Kickstarters. All of them have funded, which is, it's nice to have that, be able to say that. So I've started to understand and learn the rhythm of it a little bit better. It is nerve-wracking, but it's also really exciting, and it feels good because seeing people, paying more just to be a part of your project, right? A lot of times creators ask for $10 for a standard print issue on a Kickstarter, which we know retail typically is $5 to $6 on a single issue if you're going down to the comic book shop. So the fact that people are giving you more than that because they want to help you make the project is such an awesome feeling. And it kind of creates an addiction to Kickstarter, I guess, for that reason. So yeah, there is the anxiety that comes with it, and all that. But there's also this really just rewarding feeling of other people having your back and really believing in what you're doing, which is awesome. And so that's, I would say, I close with that, just thanking everybody that's checked us out, everybody that's helped support the book. And has given us a vote of confidence in it, and we really, really appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't end it better than that. So make sure you go hit that pre-launch. I'll have the link in the description here, and then tomorrow everybody can start backing and try to help them push those numbers, because this sounds like an awesome concept. I'm really excited for it. So everybody needs to make sure they back it.
You